can be the turning point in your life by making a simple decision.
Fundamental questions of navigation. Where am I? Where am I going? And how do I get there from here?
I invite the leaders of our planet to ask themselves these three questions before they make any crucial decisions.
But if you don't make decisions, you're going to stay right where you are.
We are all map makers.
We are in a time of transition.
If we're going to change, we have to change the direction that we're going.
Our planet needs leaders who know where they want to go.
When we change the direction we're going, then we want to make sure we're going in the right direction.
Leaders who can see the big picture.
Because if we're not, we're going to either go backwards or we're going to stay where we are.
Recognizing the psychological and the spiritual shifts and changes that need to be made, often from the inside to the outside.
To be able to shape your future, you have to be willing and able to change your paradigm.
Complex journeys require navigation. The path to the truth is one such journey. This is your GPS. Hairstyling services provided by J.D. Edwards Salon and Spa, Palmdale Shopping Plaza, Madeira Street.
Good morning, Bahamas, and good morning, world. Welcome to GPS, Global Paradigm Shift. I am your host, Michelle Malcolm. Day 2 here on my new home, Glory 93.9 FM. Welcome to the show. So today we're going to be talking about oil, and I'm calling this show Oil and Water Don't Mix. But oil and money sure do. We're going to have some fun today. And I see where one of my guests has joined us in the StreamYard studio, so we're going to let him in. Now, the other guest was there and disappeared. And Joe, if you can hear me, please sign back in because you're no longer in the StreamYard studio. But let's go ahead and get C. Alan Johnson in there. C. Alan, boy, you look kind of cute. Can you hear us? Can you hear us, C. Alan? Okay, so I'm not sure what's going on, why he can't hear us. C. Alan, we're speaking to you. Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Hello?
Are you hearing me?
I can hear you perfectly. Can you hear me? Okay, we're not sure why C. Alan is not hearing us. I see he's in the studio. In the meantime, Joe Darville just signed on. So let's see if we can get Joe Darville on and see what's happening while we try to get C. Alan sorted out. Joe, can you hear me?
I can hear you very clearly. Can you hear me?
Perfectly. Welcome to GPS. How you doing?
I'm fantastic. And you? You look
well.
gorgeous. You look gorgeous today.
Hey, you looking kind of fine yourself, man. Thanks so much.
I'm sitting out here by the ocean, so I got to feel fine.
Oh, I envy you. I envy you. Well, today, as you know, our topic is oil and water don't mix, but oil and money sure do. We're going to be talking about the very controversial exploratory drilling that's going on now in Bahamian waters. I want to hear from you as a person, chairman of State of the Bays, and as a person who is very much an environmental activist. Speaking of which, we're also going to be joined at noon by Sam Duncombe, who could not make it with our first hour because she had another engagement, but she is committed to join us on the call at noon. And as soon as C. Alan gets back online, because I see he's dropped off, we're going to get him back on the call, and hopefully he'll sort out the issues on his end, and he'll be able to hear us as we can hear him. So, Joe, Happy New Year. I haven't seen you since last year.
Yeah, Happy New Year and congratulations on this new venture of yours. You always live for those creative aspirations. My God, I really admire you. That is awesome.
Thank you so much.
By the time you get as old as me, you will have such a facility that you could communicate without even instruments across the planet.
That's not, you know what? I don't, when I hear that kind of thing, I don't discount it, because everything that's happening nowadays in technology, back in the day, we thought, it was science fiction. And now a lot of these things, like if I grew up watching the Jetsons, cartoons on TV when I was a kid, and a lot of the stuff that was on the Jetsons that was like fantasy is very much reality today. So I don't doubt it. I welcome it.
Now,
So now,
in fact, this is the time of the machines. Now, not to diminish the value of human beings, because they still have to produce these particular machines, which will take over all the activities that normally human beings would do. Now, that calls for, again, an ascendancy in consciousness, so that we do not become machines ourselves, but we will use them simply as instruments, like we've been doing during the pandemic, with social distancing and online and Zoom meetings and all the rest. So that will continue at a phenomenal rate. So this is why this COVID came, for a specific reason. It is actually to catapult this whole universe, the Earth in particular, into another dimension, a paradigm shift, like you used to say. And this is exactly what you are forecasting with respect to the terminology, paradigm shift. So I am so thankful that I could be this old. I'm going to be 80 at the end of this year, in December. I was 79 and 24th of December last year.
wow.
And I am so grateful that I could sit out here and look at this beautiful ocean, hardly a cloud in the sky today. And this is why we cannot let foreign entities, foreign what you call piratical people come in and destroy what God has given us, blessed us with, and we need to preserve it, particularly for future generations. I know that's my calling right now, to agitate to make sure that when I lay me down to die and I go back to heaven, I know I've done my part in trying to preserve this incredible environment for future generations.
All right. I thanks so much. I see C. Allen has come back on the call. Let's see if we can get him in there. C. Allen, can you hear us now? C. Allen, can you hear us?
Thanks so much. I see
C. Allen, can you hear us?
on the.
Okay, I'm not sure what's going on with C. Allen's
Are you
audio.
hearing me?
We hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Don't move.
There he
Let me
is.
just try to change speakers.
Okay. C. Allen got to work on his technical issues. And of all people who shouldn't be having technical issues is C. Allen, because he's Mr.
He's
Technology.
a tech guy. Yeah, that's right.
He's Mr. IT. So
I've learned a lot from him.
Right? All right. Go figure. Okay. In the meantime, let me throw out the numbers to call. 828-2543. 828-2543 is the text and call line. And 828-3543. 828-3543 is the call line. So those are the numbers that you can call. And of course, you can send us a message here on Facebook. I see some messages coming through already. Calvin Roll says he's watching all the way from, Calvin, you're trying to cause my tongue get tied up today. Ontario, Canada. I ain't trying to call that first place because that looked a little confusing to my tongue. So welcome to the show. Watching all the way from California. We also have Veronica Ward saying, good morning, Ms. Malcolm, and guests, looking forward to another great show as yesterday. Thank you so much. Tanya Dior Maycock Duncombe says, day 2, oil and water don't mix. Child, Tanya, this is a serious thing. Oil and water don't mix, but oil and money sure enough do. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I really hope C. Allen can get his technical issues worked out. Okay, so can you hear us, C. Allen?
Yes, I can.
Oh, praise the Lord. The technical man got it together. Welcome to the show. Known as the critical thinker, activist, Mr. IT. You know, I can let you live this down, right? That you couldn't get your audio on. But anyhow, that's another thing. Welcome to the show, man. And Happy New Year. I haven't seen you since last year.
Yeah, I've seen you, though. Congratulations on your first show.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, so gentlemen, we're talking oil today. Oil and water don't mix, but oil and money sure enough do. And I want to start with you, Joe. From an environmental perspective, why are you and your colleagues so dead set against the exploratory drilling that is now taking place in our waters?
Well, I think, we've had two very dramatic examples in the last number of years, last 10 years, one in the Gulf which was part of the BP drilling as well.
Mhm.
And the spillage there cost over $6 million at present to clean up. And
Brilliant.
the environment, and particularly the marine environment, is still in a catastrophic, devastating state of affairs. And of course, we have the oil spillage right here on Grand Bahama.
Oh crap! I did something wrong. Hold on, trying to get fancy. Okay, go ahead, Joe. We got you back.
Yeah, here on Grand Bahama, where the oil spillage amounted to about a little over 2 million gallons of oil, 550,000 barrels, and they could not even commandeer sufficient equipment to deal with the oil spillage, even in 10 days' time, which speaks to the phenomenal risk that we will take by dealing with any sort of oil affair in our nation. And at the present time, well, fortunately, unfortunately, I put that in quotes, the oil spill at Equinor actually went into the forest. It did not go into the ocean. And that was simply because those caps on the oil tanks were only made to withstand 140 knot winds. Unfortunately, they blew off before the tornadic action came, because when the tornado came, it actually pushed things out towards the ocean area. As you would see from the pine forest, they all lay from north to south, but the oil went into the north, which meant that the winds were then coming from the south at about 440 knots and blew it off. Now, I say that to say that, we still at the present time have hundreds of acres of pine forests and our wetlands being devastated by oil on the ground. And so far, there is less than 1% of that cleaned up. And there is very little, if any, monitoring of the authorities to make sure that that thing is done as it should. In fact, I've taken upon myself, I've gone out there probably 15 to 20 times, and I've taken upon myself to monitor exactly what is taking place there. I was out there about 2 weeks ago, and there was a team of people still working. They're only about 300 meters from the main road. And I would estimate that they have only cleaned up from the ground about 1% of that area. And you're talking about over 75 acres of wetlands. They cannot go in there because they will do more damage to the wetlands. And so the petrol that was seeped into those areas will penetrate our water table. There's no doubt about it whatsoever. There are fish trying to survive in that area. So I give that example to say that in the Bahamas, we have absolutely no means to deal with any catastrophic spill of oil. And we have an incredible, pristine 100,000 square miles of ocean. Beautiful, pristine ocean. And we would be damn fools if we are going to let the piratical people out of England or any place else and joining up with Bahamians to come here and do anything that's going to destroy this pristine ocean that we have, on which, by the way, our future generations must survive. By the end of this century, we will lose another 80% of our hard land, and we have only 6,002 acres of that. And therefore, we will be left with the ocean. We will become ocean-going people. And we must, by sacred admonition by the divine, we have the authority, the right to preserve this for future generations. So that will give you a kind of introduction to how we feel about this BPPC, we call it PPP company now, coming in here. And it's almost like a den of pirates, conniving with our Bahamians who were craving for filthy riches and therefore very little regard for the environment. And so we have to stop that. By divine admonition, we are demanded to stop such a catastrophic, nonsensical impact on our marine environment.
Okay, so you said a moment ago that you brought up BP's history, that they have been involved in the past in accidents taking place involving oil. For the benefit of our viewers and listeners who are not familiar with what took place in the past, what you're referring to, can you briefly tell us what that incident was?
Well, I'm sure, you know, I don't want to take over because C. Alan Johnson has probably even more specific information on that. And so I would like to take a little rest and hear from him, because all of us know who have studied and actually guarded the pristine environment that we have, and particularly Alan Johnson. So I would ask him to address that, and I will just fill in.
See, Alan, go right ahead.
Yes. The drilling ship that they have had a number of incidents that was what is called preventable incidents that would have, if you apply it to this environment, would be catastrophic. Essentially, let's look at BPC. BPC is not an oil company in its truest sense, nor it is a production company. Essentially, BPC was nothing more than a speculation company going back to 2005 that basically had done nothing but basically came in. If you look at the history of this contract signing in 2005, essentially what you had was a company that basically had no assets, nothing more than an idea, whose entire premise was based on a lack of information that was in the Bahamian public domain. In their very statement, they stated that their exploratory exercise is based on documents the Bahamas government supposedly have lost in their archives during the storms of the 80s in the Bahamas. But that information is readily available in the public domain. The fact is that they are now in the area now, for those who may not understand, they are drilling in an area where oil has already been found. This is why when you begin to listen to their language, and I guess it's playing on the ignorance of Bahamians, they don't use the word wildcatting. They use the word spudding. When you spud, you spud, the word spud means to go into an area where oil has already been found and verified. So essentially, they're not wildcatting, basically looking for oil. They are now going back to a location where at the time the technology did not exist to verify the quantity, not if oil is there, because oil is there is going to, they're going there to verify the quantity and to get samples of the quality, to get for the quality. At the time when the oil was, when back then, even when the oil was spud, we did not understand or even knew the impact that would the LNG would have on it also. And so basically what they've done is they've come in and taken advantage. In fact, we should ask the question, is the mere fact that when we began discussion with them back in 2005, why is it that they would be bringing us information that we did not have in our treasure trove of information, of government information, and we as a government itself did not go back and verify and actually get this access to the same information from the United States Geographical Services and other companies that exist. Because there's a number of myself and others, Wesley Campbell and others, that has copies of these very same reports. So it wasn't something out of reach. And then when you combine that with the mere fact, it becomes very suspicious in my eyes, because when you combine what they did then and what we are beginning to learn now, we're waiting to see the agreement, but we understand, but even within that agreement, there is a $500 million penalty for us to withdraw from this agreement. $500 million penalty for a company that had no assets. In fact, the company was scrapping for assets to look to pay its licensing fees up to less than 6 months ago. And so the mere fact that we have this conversation back and forth between the Progressive Liberal Party and the Free National Movement is even draws more suspicion, more questions for us to begin to look into exactly what is happening with this resource. But the problem I have is that BPC just merged with another company that actually does the oil production type environment, and then they begin to claim that company's history as if though it is part of their history. But essentially, what also concerns me is the fact that you have, shares. The share structure is not available to Bahamians, the individuals that hold shares in this company, and for the fact that the individuals who negotiated for us would put in after learning. Remember now, we just went through this with the BTC type environment with the $100 million penalty. Now, I want people to remember back then, I want people, please go on my record. When we had the BTC battle, I told you the shares of BTC that were being sold was worth $1 billion. I want to apologize for being wrong, because since our sale of 51% of BTC for less than $100 million, we found out later that they sold those shares for 1.5 billion. So I was off by $500 million. Okay. So, but for the mere fact that we could have paid that $100 million penalty, and we could have paid it at $20 a month if we have to. And it's also, the government of the Bahamas also have legislative ability to control and choose whatever and how anything happens within the country, even within the laws of the Bahamas, like even for this within the environmental laws. We're now having an argument that here's a company that accelerated drilling into an environment when they began to feel the pressure from the United States government, from the state of Florida and others. They went knowingly, they did not pay the licensing fees, meaning that they, from a corporate standpoint, and the legal team should have advised them that they had no need to go into that particular area and begin drilling, because their license, in essence, was not valid.
Okay, Kellen, we have our first caller on the line, so I'm going to go to the phone lines now and welcome the caller. Welcome to GPS. Caller, go ahead. We're listening. Hi, you're on the air.
Yes, please. I would like to know, is that working only through the phone, or we can plug in on WhatsApp or Facebook live broadcast?
You're on the live broadcast now, ma'am.
Okay, so with our participation, we can be as the audience and also express our own concern.
Yes, we're listening to you now. What is your concern?
Well, I missed the beginning of an introduction, so I did not need to get more knowledge of the discussion topics. Then I will be more than happy to express it. I just was successfully plugging in to listen what's going on.
Okay.
But I understand this is just a call to talk to you directly. But where is that whole context that I miss? Because what I accepted or expected to plug through the link on Facebook and listen all the speakers and follow up the conversation.
Caller, you're calling the phone line. So what I need you to do is to go to Facebook and look for Michelle Malcolm official page, and you'll be able to watch and listen to the show there on Facebook. But you just
I am on Facebook.
Okay.
I am right now on Facebook.
So you just called in, though. You called into the show. So I'm assuming that you called in because you had a question or a statement.
No, I wanted to say that I could not plug into Facebook your live broadcast. That's what I mean. Okay, let me.
So people who actually, thanks for calling, who actually want to ask a question or have a statement to make with regard to the show. Okay. Sorry, Cialan, I cut you in the middle of that to take that call. So go ahead and continue with the thought that you had started to express.
Essentially, what we have is nothing more than a play. Yes, are you hearing me? What we're having now,
we can hear you perfectly.
Is nothing more than nothing more than a play on words between our government. Now, our government is both the Progressive Liberal Party and the Free National Movement. And this is becoming very concerning. Now, let me just go back for a moment for people to understand the context of what we have to lose. Now, we talk about an oil spill or potential oil spill. As we speak right now, the ship that's in our yard, in our waters, is dumping thousands of gallons of gray matter, discharges into our water. That's part of the environmental report. Thousands of gallons, right, very close to what is called our bed. We must understand that the Bahamas is the third largest nursery in the world for sea life. And so we have to understand the value of this $1 trillion resource, $1 trillion. We must also understand that the blue economy, which is something we are just moving into with the passing of the legislation of the fisheries bill by the Honorable Michael Pintard, gives us access to $1 trillion economy. And so when we look at what has already been found there before, there's no need for us to rush to that type of environment. Maybe in another 50 years or 100 years, if technology evolves, our children and grandchildren will have the ability to go and be able to tap into it if oil is still something that we use to make plastics. It definitely will not be something part of the energy type environment. But what happens now is that we are risking we hear us talking about the aragonite. We are listing billions of tons of aragonite, even at $1 each. The deposits we have in one area there is 150 billion tons. So here it is. You have a company that's telling us that we'll get $5 billion over 10 years. That's $500,000 a year from a resource that is, according from the previous surveys, for people who may not understand, according to the previous oil surveys, when we tap into oil, the Bahamas may have oil reserves larger than Saudi Arabia. But yet, according to this agreement that they're saying, we will only get $500,000 a year.
Don't you find that suspect? What is wrong with that picture?
Because this is why, again, we must see that agreement that they're hiding. Here it is, that a government that came in on transparency, accountability, integrity, anti-corruption, freedom of information, and campaign finance reform said that has yet to meet any of those low-hanging fruits, is now refusing to provide any form of documentation that they say they sign on our behalf. Because again, the Free National Movement and the Best Commission in the Office of the Prime Minister, which in case people don't know, the Prime Minister in his utterances that he's against oil, every approval that this oil company needed to get could only be given by the Prime Minister, including the Best Commission, which is in his office. The Best Commission does not lie with the Minister of Environment, it lies with the Office of the Prime Minister. Crown Land, which happens to be the seabed, lies in the office of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister have constructive control of the waterways for ships entering and exiting the Bahamas. And so all of these things actually lies in the lap of the current Prime Minister, the most honorable Hubert Alexander Minnis. And so when we begin to have these convolution and conflation of arguments, it begins to cause one to become even more concerned.
Let me ask y'all a question, because you know we all know that our economy has been decimated. It wasn't in great shape before, and thanks to COVID-19, our economy has been decimated. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything and call it anything than what it is. So there are some who are saying that, you know, y'all around here talking about, you know, the sun, sand, and sea and protecting our waters, etc. We need to eat. And if there's oil there, that will be a game changer for the Bahamas. That will take us from a place of poverty from many to where many will now have much better lives. How do you counter that argument? If there's oil there that could benefit everybody, why are you against it?
No, let me counter that argument, because for the next 10 years, the Prime Minister, for the next 5 years, the Prime Minister of the Bahamas has promised $25 million to this economic funds. That's given us $500 million. Let's go back and when you say would be out. The problem is those individuals either is ignorant, short-sighted, or just liars if they have information. Now let me quantify that. The Prime Minister of the Bahamas sits on a few million acres of crown land, many of it beachfront and the likes. I can document for you well over 90 resources worth in the trillions of dollars. Let me use one of them. One of them is called carbon credits, for which the Prime Minister himself and the Right Honorable, the Most Honorable Prime Minister spoke about, and the Honorable Michael Pintard mentioned in his contribution in the range of $6 billion. But what is carbon credits? The Bahamas happens to be a carbon sink area for using our mangroves and our seas. If we was to pass a law like we did for turtles, dogs, and sharks in 10 minutes, we could begin to sell that $6 million carbon credits. I have information and documentation from environmental groups to show that the carbon credits produced in the Bahamas is in excess of $10 billion per year that we just let expire every single year. But let's talk about
$10 billion, C. Allen, with a B?
With a B, $10 billion. Let me give you all a secret. Let me give you a secret that a lot of people may not understand. We're talking about aragonite. Do you know we talk about the billions of tons of aragonite is produced in the Bahamas or has been produced in the Bahamas is actually also carbon credits? We could sell the carbon credits from the aragonite. Let's use the Myers report for where there's 150 billion tons of aragonite over there by Ocean Key. The value of that alone at $1 is $150 billion. the carbon credits value of that which is produced is also in the billions of dollars per year, which if we were to even get $1 billion a year from our carbon credits, doing nothing, absolutely doing nothing, from the green mangroves, red mangroves to black mangroves, we could collect $1 million a year from $1 billion a year, $1 billion from doing nothing but selling carbon credits. But when you look and examine the fact that aragonite is nothing more than a combination of radiant heat, the sea, and carbon dioxide in the air that combines, causing the aragonite to fall, which produces a carbon, what we call aragonite, which in essence is also a carbon capture device. That there alone is in the billions of dollars. We have 90 plus type of resources that in immediate value is in excess in the billions of dollars. Now let me give you just one more example of that. The Prime Minister sits on millions of acres of crown land. I want people to get their calculator. If the Prime Minister today was to move 50,000 acres of crown land into a sovereign wealth fund environment, getting a proper sovereign asset management company to come in to manage for the development of that. Let's use an example, beachfront property, an acre, prime, $300,000 per acre. 50,000 acres times $300,000 will net us $15 billion value in a sovereign wealth fund. $15 billion that he could do in 24 hours. 24 hours. So that's how we talk about capitalization. I could go through tremendous resources that the Bahamas have that we could leverage right now. We talk about the blue economy and the green economy. The blue economy in the Bahamas.
Why is this not happening in your opinion, C. Allen? And I want to get Fred. I want to get Joe back in on this conversation because he's been sitting there for a while. Why do y'all think this is not happening? Why do you think that everybody is saying go for, well, not everybody, but the decision makers are saying the oil is the way to go and ignoring all these other natural assets that we have?
Because they have constructive control of the economy, and that the things I spoke about can't be hidden. They have constructive control of the economy. Just use the oil.
So what you trying to say, C. Allen? You're trying to say there's corruption involved, and this is why they're trying to keep things in the dark, because then it's all in the light. They can't maneuver where they want. Let's speak plainly.
It's absolutely corruption. Listen to me. There's no resources in the Bahamas that has not been harvested, that cannot be attacked, that has not been known by governments today and previous governments. And so the word corrupt means unfit for its purpose. But the problem is that they want constructive control of all of our resources. They want control of the harbors. They want control of the oil. They want control of the aragonite. They want control of everything, as opposed to coming to the people. It's just that we are now moving into the information age, that we are now having the ability to look and verify these various different things. COVID has escalated the need for us to look at the entire Bahamas or reimagine the Bahamas. In doing so, there's a number of us who have been talking about this for 2 decades now, and they have blasted us in the newspapers as being liars, delusional, crazy, whatever. Mm-hmm. Now the internet is coming to reality to bring this information in the public domain that we can see that this is true. And so when you talk about the blue economy, the fact now that the Bahamas is now protected exclusively for Bahamians, if I wanted to put a young Bahamian into the blue economy now, say in the fishing industry, it is no problem for me now to go into the US or some other place, ask a person if they're willing to pre-purchase, say 7 years of fish from them for $75,000. Take that $500,000, buy their boat, equip them with everything they want. They could go into the blue industry, make $200,000, $300,000 a year on their fishery, deliver $75,000 worth of fishery to whoever they have the agreement with, and still make a tremendous amount of income. What has happened is that we've been barely surviving, and they have kept us in this vacuum of information, keeping the information out. Because to understand, information, when provided, you say, I know, you have knowledge. Knowledge, when properly executed, is wisdom. Okay. So they've been keeping the information from us, so we will have no knowledge.
Okay. We have another call coming in, so I'm going to answer this call now. Why didn't I answer it? I'm trying to answer the call here, guys. Okay, for some reason it didn't pick up. Okay, so let me get Joe in on this while the technicians are trying
Okay,
to
before
with the
before
phone
we
line.
start, let me thank Joe while I have him here. Let me say something. For his stellar work that he has done for the decades in regard of fighting for and preserving the environment is what how we are today to fight for something. If somebody didn't stand up for it, to protect it and push back. I'm simply saying to Joe, from this point on, my generation and the generation after that you've been nurturing is going to come to a realization of what the Bahamas is, and your work will not be in vain.
Okay,
This is
Joe. Let's get Joe in on here, C. Allen. Okay, so that was the text line they were calling. I see. Okay, Joe, let's get you back in on this conversation.
Okay. Yeah, okay, Michelle, you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Well, I underscore everything that C. Allen has said, and we have to go back and realize that this whole phenomenon of majority rule is a fallacy. We never had majority rule. From the very beginning, from the White Knights on Eastern Road and the Bay Street Boys, who ran the previous administration of government before the PLP took over, they were able to infiltrate the PLP and to make sure that nothing was done that would have undermined their economic intentions in this country. That has perpetrated all the way through every administration so far in our country. And so we have to look at this fundamentally, and we have to look at it because we still have the pirates in this country. We have a den of pirates, and now they're making connection to the very country and the very area of the planet where the pirates came from. And you know that oil is not allowed to be drilled for in England or anywhere along the coast of England. And so, of course, they see the Bahamas as, as a banana republic, a bunch of white and black niggers. And so they could come and do whatever they want. They could convince our black Bahamians who are in a position and who have been enriched by the traditional way of gaining money in the country. They have gained 99% of the wealth in the country, and they are only less than 1%. And this is why we have poverty in this country. If we had the foresight, the wisdom to use the resources in this country properly, even tourism, we would not have hunger in this country. We would not have to be borrowing money to feed the poor. And this fallacy about the government does this, the government sends out $2 million to this. They don't. The government don't own a cent. That is money borrowed on future generations in this country. And we got to change this system. We have the wrong system of taxation, this wrong system. And the white and a few black peppers in there, they have over the years and years made sure that they had a stranglehold on whatever political party was in power. And we have to stop that. We have an obligation to future generations to save something for them. And oil is not the way to go. Interesting enough, before I forget this, because 80 years old, as I always say, I forgive myself, but I don't remember everything. But the fact is, I said a couple of weeks ago, and was never denied, I said that I did my investigation on companies that have gone, and particularly in the Caribbean area, and found out that it would take 10 years before they actually discover and begin to drill up oil for any country to benefit from it, because they would have to pay all of the investors and all of the bills that they have outstanding. And interesting enough, just yesterday, Potter came up and said that the Bahamas will begin to benefit from it 6 years from now. Jesus, Lord, help this country.
Yeah.
What are we putting our people into? This is criminal. It is a denial of the beauty of God's creation, what has been given to this country. We have less than 400,000 people in the country. There should be no one hungry in this country. When Dorian came, when COVID-19 came, every Bahamian should have stored up enough money so that they would not, something, we have the poor, they're having to go out to beg, and then some of them are stealing and they're thrown in jail. What kind of country is that? When we have all the natural resources, as C. Allen has pointed out, We need to have access to those. And I quote a previous governor of the central bank 10 years ago, saying to me that there were $5.5 billion sitting in Bahamian banks owned by less than 1% of the population. And it wasn't even counting the money that was abroad in Switzerland, Panama, and America and other places. That's what we need to get at. We cannot tolerate this foolishness from politicians, denying our people from living a respectable life, void of poverty, not having to steal. Some of them don't even have water. They have no fresh water. They don't have no electricity. For God's sake, where is our sacred oath to protect the interests of our people?
We have to take a break.
So we have to begin now. All of this stuff, COVID and Dorian, if that doesn't teach us a lesson, and Equinor hasn't, we have three phenomena right here in the Bahamas in the last 2 years. And if those phenomena are not telling us to, hey, clean house, look at where you're going, and begin a totally different regime in terms of how the resources, and I totally agree, we have enough aragonite in this country, and aragonite is forever renewing itself. And why do we want to go the way of oil? The potential, something? We fought Barco here from spillage.
Joe, we have to take a break.
Take a break. I need one.
But there's a lot you guys are touching on that I want to dive into deeper on the other side of the break, because here's the deal, y'all. Oil is something that most of the world is moving away from right now. So why are we moving towards it? The point that Joe made about the handful of people having all these huge bank accounts abroad, I dare say that is a system that has been allowed to thrive for generations, and this generation intends to keep it that way. But unfortunately, they are facing a generation of people on the outside who's saying enough is enough. Time for that game to stop. We're going to talk about it on the other side. This is GPS, your global paradigm shift. I'm Michelle Malcolm. Stay with us.
For all your building needs, it's Carib Construction and Project Management on Gladstone Road. We build it all: schools, homes, hotels, and more, including structures requiring a Phase 3 electrical contractor. We also provide project management services. The first step towards your dream building begins at Carib Construction and Project Management. Call us at 376-1556 or 341-4466. At Lee Air, safety is our #1 priority. Flying since 1996, we offer scheduled flights into Fresh Creek and Mangrove Key Andros and Great Harbor Key, Berry Island, twice daily, 7 days a week. Affordable charter services are also available to anywhere in the Bahamas and the Caribbean. Lee Air Charter Services. Call 225-3267, 702-7127, or 322-1317 for reservations.
And we're back. Welcome back to GPS Global Paradigm Shift. I'm your host, Michelle Malcolm, and my guests today are C. Alan Johnson and Joseph Darville. We're talking oil today. Oil and water don't mix, but oil and money do. That's what we're talking about. Our phone lines to call: 828-3543. 828-3543 is the call line. So that's the number to call if you want to ask a question or make a statement on air, on the radio. And our text line is 828-2543. 828-2543 is the text line. And you can also send us a message via Facebook. Speaking of which, let's go to a couple of these messages now that have been sent by those of you watching via Facebook. We see a lot of people sending shout outs from all over the world. Hi, Tim from Africa. I saw somebody from Canada, somebody from Michigan. So welcome to the show, everybody. Bishop W.S. Henschel said earlier Good to have you and Paradigm Shift back on the airwaves. The nation will be better. Thank you so much, Bishop, for your support. Merlene Evans says, preach on, sir. They need to stop covering up. Bruce Swigger says, the deal they made, we won't see a dime of that money. Boy, Bruce, I pray and hope you're wrong. Bertha Smith, yet some Bahamians are saying Minnis deserves a second term. They are all the same. Still think Minnis is the worst one. Wow. Natalia Russell. Now, Natalia, I try to pronounce your last name. So sorry. One, we have elected government and support the government system, which cannot act independently from the world order. Two, at the same time, you're asking for democracy. Three, you must start from effication in world governing science. Thank you so much. Bruce Swigger Sawyer again says every Bahamian needs to know this information. And Natalia again says, yes, we must develop and nurture a young generation wisely, who is QQQ, who is truly and really acting as true Democrats and independents from personal addiction to the country wisely. Okay, I'm not sure I fully understood that one. Final message, and then we're going to go back to the guests. Bruce Swigger Sawyer says we are moving towards it because our politicians have made deals with BPC companies so they can make millions off of the deal. Okay, so let's go back to our guests. So, you know, we've been hearing what you guys have been saying on this show for quite some time. This is nothing new. This is not, you know, some revelation that is all of a sudden coming to the fore. And I'm sure if you know it, and I know it, and the general public knows it, then they know it too. When I say they, I'm talking about the leaders of the country. I'm talking about those who have signed the agreements for this exploratory drilling to continue. I'm talking about those who will benefit from this. So why is it that, in your opinion, gentlemen, why is it, and I think you touched on it earlier, C. Alleman, you said we can't hide the carbon credits. Whereas you can hide a deal, you can not make public a deal as it relates to the oil drilling. You can't hide carbon credits. So are we dealing with a matter of, you know, let me go back. Let me put it this way. You say we may have more oil than Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia, we know, has benefited tremendously from their oil industry. But there's a major difference between the Bahamas and Saudi Arabia. And it all goes back to the question of governance. I remember seeing an interview with a gentleman from Dubai talking about how they were able to transform that economy. And one of the things that he said is that one of the reasons why we were able to do this so successfully is because we do not have corruption in government. So we have a government whose main interest is to do the best for its people, to advance the nation. And this is why we were able to turn this economy around, because it's not just a matter of having access to the resource. Look at Africa. You could have all of the natural resources in the world, worth all the money in the world. But if you have corrupt people responsible for that, I don't want you to believe for 1 second you can get a dime out of that. How do you gentlemen respond to that?
Let me first respond. Just let me say one thing I want people to understand. There's a concept that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's a wrong statement. Power does not corrupt, nor does power corrupt absolutely. Power reveals. So if you have a person whose character is one of corruption, but because of the lack of power, they pretend to be something else, all power will do is reveal it. And so when you begin to look at what we have gotten in governance, power did not change any of them. They were exactly who we sent to parliament, that power revealed who they were. And so when you have, and when you ask, so why don't you do the oil? Because when you start talking about billions and trillions of dollars, a corrupt mind cannot see the power of collective empowerment. It's a selfish, me, and they cannot see beyond the cave for which they exist. They see no one else. And so essentially we have been sending people to parliament whose very character doesn't match their reputation. They have been very careful in cultivating a reputation which people get to see, but character is who you see in the mirror. And so we have to now begin to closer scrutinize the very reputation of the individuals, because it just may be a facade. Now, you asked about BPC. Let's look at the shares of BPC. If you own 6 million shares of BPC, today you spend three pence for it. If, when this verification process happens again, this is not about finding oil, this is not wildcatting, this is about spudding. Spudding is going to where oil has been verified. So when you spud this well and you verify it, your share value jumped up to $100. So you have just went from having $600,000 or $60,000 into the billions of dollars when you look at the shares times 100. So essentially, an individual can go from having a few million shares, 60 million shares or whatever, to be worth $6 billion on the day they declare this value shoots up. So this is about some people getting theirs and the hell with the rest. It's almost as if though you say you share the soda, you drink from your share of the soda, and then you throw the bottle on the ground and say, the hell with everyone else. And that's essentially what has happened. Because a proper constituted environment, the sovereign wealth fund argument is not a new idea to the Bahamas. It's an idea that even myself has propped for 20 years, every single year. One thing people can tell you is, I am consistent. For 20 years, we talked about this, and many people has dismissed it. Now we're beginning to see what it is. So what happens, though, is that if we were now, and we have to ask, even though we're talking about the corruption that has entered into this oil deal and all the other deals, because if we have not benefited from the billions and billions of resources in this country, they all could be classified as unfit for its purpose, corrupt deals in the eyes of the people. But we can fix this today, because the only thing the Prime Minister has to do, and this is what Bahamians must advocate for, we must advocate for the establishment not of what they're trying to give us, a sovereign wealth fund, a simple sovereign wealth fund that surrenders all known and unknown assets of the Bahamas into the sovereign wealth fund, tangible and intangible, for which will be surrendered regardless of its value. I don't care if it's only $1. Then we can hire global or professional assessment people known as sovereign asset management companies. Mind you, this who runs Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund, this who runs Qatar sovereign wealth fund, this who runs Norway's sovereign wealth fund, sovereign asset management company. And we use an example.
So in essence, you're saying take that control out of the hands of the local politicians and get some people here who don't have no skin in the game to run this thing.
And then, let's use an example. If I win the lottery tonight, $1 million, I don't go and give my money to some investment bureau and says, here, give me 12% back. That money is always mine. That investment firm looks to see how they can maximize so they can take a share of the profit, not a share of my assets. It is unreasonable, even going back to 2005, that the global average for oil shares is for the country is between 65 and 85%. How did we start at 12.5% against the advice? If you check the record of this, we had some external advice that recommended our share pricing, and the government in the Bahamas ignored the advice of our advisors and decided on 12.5%, and then put a poison pill in for $500 million. That could only be corruption. And my point to you is this: we've had an F&M administration since that deal was signed. We have had a Progressive Liberal Party administration since that deal has been signed. And we have also now have another Free National Movement thing. And this document has been on the desk and has been extended multiple times across administration. So the question is, how is it now that we want to let them sell us this argument that one side did not know it's a bad deal? If you played 10 years on the job and now to come and say you are ignorant, then you are unqualified to make movement forward. Because if you had the information and you are still ignorant of it, or lying, then you are unfit to govern us any further. It's plain and simple. We need a new mandate for the resources now to be aware of it. This, if you use a sidebar again, in the House of Assembly, you had a commission that comes in, the committee, who came back and says, oh, we have 12 resources. Well, how is it that someone outside without access to the information they have could name you 75 resources, 75 or more? So the mere fact is either something is wrong with that committee, something is wrong with government. The manual government is the millions of dollars that we spend every year in the civil service and professionals and advice to not know what is happening within our country. I say to you, it's marketing to distract us again, to turn us PLP against FNM against DNA.
Listen,
continue moving forward with whatever they have planned.
If you want to learn how to pivot and point and distract and smoke and mirrors and all that kind of stuff, word to all politicians around the world, come study our politicians. They know how to distract. They are experts at that. And I want to encourage our people to stop allowing them to be so good at it. We need to start making our leaders, whether they are in government, in opposition, hopeful, whatever, be accountable to us. Be accountable. You need to come to us and you need to explain to us what your position is on the policies that matter, the policies that are going to take us from one place to a higher place in this country. I don't want to hear the rhetoric. I don't want to hear the propaganda that they come up with during elections season, all the fancy slogans, because slogan ain't putting no food on my table. We need to make these people accountable, make these people come to us and say, this is my position on this particular issue. This is how we intend to deal with it. And I can then make an educated decision as to whether or not I am in agreement with your position on this particular policy. Until we get to that place in this country, forget about it. We are going to be going back and forth like a pendulum, back and forth between the two and not going anywhere. We need to make these people accountable. Now, we have to take a commercial break. When we come back, I believe we're going to be joined on the other side by Sam Duncombe as well. She had a previous engagement and she couldn't get out of it. So now she's hoping to join us at 12 o'clock and she will bring her view to this conversation as well. I see, Joe, your video has been freezing a lot, so I'm not sure if you're having some technical issues. Hopefully you'll get that sorted out as well so we can get you back in on this conversation. Stay with us.
I'm okay.
Make sure that you like and share the show. Like and share the show. Let everybody know GPS is on the air. We're talking some real talk, people. We're getting the truth out. And we need you to like and share the show to let everybody know what's going on here. Stay with us. This is GPS. Your global paradigm shift. We'll be back after this.
Looking for an extraordinary junior high school with caring, qualified staff and affordable tuition? Then come visit us at Elite School of Excellence, an affiliate of First Step Academy. ABECA focused and Ministry of Education approved, we foster discipline, integrity, and wisdom while molding our students for success. Call us at 341-8846 or stop by First Step Academy schools on Fire Trail and Soldy Roads for more information. Escape from the city life to Bacon Air Beach Resort in Pirateswell, Mayaguana. Relax in one of 16 air-conditioned rooms just steps away from the ocean. Enjoy scrumptious dishes in our waterfront dining room. Sip on a tropical cocktail, or if you must, stay connected with wireless internet. Nestled on one of the most beautiful beaches in the Bahamas, Bacon Air Beach Resort offers a unique vacation experience.
Ownership or
And welcome back to GPS Global Paradigm Shift. I'm your host, Michelle Malcolm. Okay, we're back now. Welcome back to GPS Global Paradigm Shift. I'm your host, Michelle Malcolm. Always a pleasure to be in your company. We just lost Joe Darville from the broadcast, and so it's Jesse, Alan Johnson, and I at this moment, and we're expecting Joe to come back on, as well as Sam Duncombe. We're expecting her to join us. We're talking oil today. Oil and water don't mix, but oil and money sure enough do. And we would like to hear from you. Our telephone lines are 828-3543. 828-3543 is the number to call. And our text line is 828-2543. 828-2543 is the text line. Would love to hear from you. Let's take a look at, I see where Joe is back. So let's get him on the stream. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the comments that you guys are leaving on Facebook. Dwayne Marshall says, Perry has all his connections with Brave. We will never get the proper treatment under Menace or Brave. It's a comment from Dwayne Marshall. Merlene Evans on Facebook says, get rid of them all. That's a comment from Merlene Evans. Let's see. Emerson Stanton Rowe. It's also sending a message, and we have a caller.
Right now.
Okay, we have a caller. We're going to take him in a minute, but the comment from Emerson Stanton Rowe says, Dwayne Marshall, you really need you really know a lot of what is happening behind the scenes. Can you verify these things you are saying? I hope you're not smoking cigarettes, because that causes some people to imagine all kinds of preposterous stuff. Bring facts. All right, let's go to the phone lines. We have our caller on the line. Caller, welcome to GPS.
Yes, good morning, Michelle. Great show that you're having.
Thank you.
Okay, first let me say this, and I respect what you said about the politicians, telling the people how they feel about certain issues that they have and how they're going to deal with it. The thing is, our politicians, they would sell you a story. Like, for instance, the administration that we have in power right now. When they were coming in, they talk about how the previous administration put taxes on the back of the poor people, and they come and double the taxes. See, what they do is they sell you stuff, and when you buy into it, they don't live up to their word. So how are we going to change that mindset? How are we going to change that? Is there a way that we could hold them in some way to what they promised to do? What are we going to do?
Good question. Thank you so much for calling. Gentlemen, how do you respond to that caller?
Well, Michelle, can I step in there? Can you hear me okay now?
We can hear you perfectly.
Oh, okay. I think what we need to do is actually, if you're going to have people who are going to represent the body of people, and we have less than 400,000 people in the country, and we have God knows how many people in Parliament. We don't need that many. We're going to need about 12 wise, educated individuals in the country to run the country like a business. This old-fashioned way that we inherited from Great Britain does not work. It will not work in this country. And so we have to change the whole dynamic of how we're going to represent our people. One of the problems we face is that many of our politicians are not highly educated, and if they are educated, they are not wise. And you have to, if you have a smattering of knowledge, but you have no wisdom, then you could become a damn fool. And so if you go back to the time of Solomon, Solomon had everything. He owned everything. He had the power to sever a baby in half to two potential mothers who were craving the child back. But he couldn't do that because he was too wise. And so, you know something? What did he ask for God that he didn't have? He asked for wisdom. Wisdom. Go back and read Solomon's story. Our politicians are uneducated. They have no sense of appropriateness. I have been so disappointed in the recent years, whether it's going to be in the PLP or the FNM, with the young people who have gone into Parliament. I had my high hopes that they would be transformed. They get in there, and it's a mixed match of total ineptitude that overtakes individuals who seem to have had the country at heart. That cannot continue to happen. We have inherited a piratical type of administration from way back from the the first political party. And when we came in, we thought that, hey, we had it all because black people were going to be in charge. Baloney. That did not happen. In fact, Majority Rule Day was one of the most dismal days energetically that I've ever seen in this country, because no one believes in majority rule in the country. And so what we need is to have educated, and we need to, if I were to give a recommendation, would we follow it? I would say disband with Parliament totally, get 12 men and women who are wise and educated and know every in and out of the country, because right now, none of them have a handle on what they're doing to this country with respect to what we're going to pass on to future generations. That is our concern. Whether we're going to allow this country to be destroyed, the only thing that is given us by God Almighty, 100,000 square miles of ocean, very little land, and we will become like Noah in the old, we'll become seagoing people, because the lands will be flooded again. Like the island I grew up on, Long Island, the 125, 30 feet, it was covered in the ocean before. I dug up conch shells from in the rocks. So these islands will not be here as far as hard land. And so we have to look at wisely why we get letting damn fools like Potter come into this country and dictate to us, treat our people as if, they are no good. They call us squealing pigs. They call us that hey, we have no concern about all the wealth that we could get from oil when we cannot even get one dime before 10 years, even if they found it. Well, like C. Allen says, they know oil is there. They're not prospecting. They know oil is there. They know it to the number of barrels. And why dig into the belly and the bosom and the breast of Mother Earth when we got this beautiful ocean to preserve? We have enough resources within the ocean to feed 1 million people. Look how many tourists we feed, even though we have to import food. But we have neglected the agriculture, we have neglected the fisheries, we have neglected all of the natural resources that could benefit. And like someone said yesterday, we need to train our people to become boat builders, become fishermen, to become divers, to become people who take care of the environment, to develop places where people can go and relax and get rid of all this tension and anger that causing us to kill our children, kill our wives and husbands and so forth. We need a paradigm, a total shift. My God, I wish I could take all of those people in Parliament today and take them to some place out on a beach and baptize them in the salt water and see if they come up with any more sense than they are perpetrating now. I stop there. Don't laugh at me.
Don't forget it's a gospel station now, so be careful. I want y'all to get too excited here. I thought you could say something else. Baptize them in salt water, my Lord.
That's cleansing. Why do you think I'm out here by the ocean talking to you? Look over there. Look at that beautiful ocean there. You see it?
Well, we see your finger, but we get the idea.
Okay. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Hey,
we see it. We see it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
God has so blessed us, beloved.
We truly are a blessed nation. We truly are a blessed nation as it relates to the natural resources that the Lord has blessed us with. We are a blessed nation. And honestly, I believe that there is very little excuse for us being in the condition that we are in now. It just shows me a lack of creativity, a lack of thought.
Wisdom.
Yeah. We have another call coming in, so let's go to the phone lines. Caller, welcome to GPS Global Paradigm Shift. You're on the air.
Okay, thank you. This is a very timely show. I want to applaud you, Malcolm, for your GPS show.
Thank you.
I hope you're recording this too, because I think this should be aired on our station, which is ZNet, not the government station.
See now, okay. I want you to me get kick off the station in my first week. All right. But it is being recorded because we're streaming live on Facebook, and as you know, once you stream live on Facebook, it's uploaded and it'll be there for all to watch and see. So I want to encourage you to go to Facebook and like and share the show, so everybody can get this knowledge. But go ahead, we're listening to you.
Yeah, that's good. And I want to encourage first Mr. Joe Dabble, that's my old principal at CHS. I can remember the days when he was agitating, when we had that poison gas. At the time we thought it as days off. But as I got older, I look back at it and I see exactly what he was saying. We were being poisoned. And also see Alan, he's been agitating for a very long time too. So I want to applaud those gentlemen. I want to encourage them to continue fighting because the human people is actually waking up and just keep their fight because I support them 100%. That's what I have to say right now. And like I said, I'd like to listen to the show in its entirety. I'm driving. I shouldn't be talking and driving, but I have to go off in this.
Pull on the side.
I want you to blame us for no accidents, so try to come off this phone. But thank you for calling. We appreciate you calling. Thank you so much.
Thank you, my brother. God bless.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you. Okay. So so gentlemen, you know, I am really concerned that we are continuing to just go around the same mulberry bush, round and round and round and round. Or let me use another example. I feel like we're hamsters. You know, the hamster in the wheel, and it's running and running and running and running and running and running, and it ain't going no further. It's like it's running in place. I think our leaders have made the mistake of thinking that activity means progress. Just because you're busy doing something doesn't mean that you're making any progress. And one of my concerns is that even the activity that we're seeing from our leaders, I believe, is lacking. We have been waiting on a full report of the economic stimulus plan. How many months now? And all we keep hearing is it coming, 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 it coming. I'm so sick and tired of hearing it coming. So
well, that's, you know, not cutting you off abruptly like that, but that's similar to what they say about the what they call it, the injection, for COVID. What do you call that word?
Vaccine.
Huh?
Vaccine.
Yeah. They said within the first quarter, and then they kept saying that, and then they said now towards the end of the third. What is the third quarter? Can't they have a date? Where is it that they could come out and say directly to our people, stop beating around the bush, you know, with this nonsense. And the fact is, you know, if I were a principal in a school right now, I would have trepidation for young people. But, you know, one exercise that I would have them do, I would have them sit down and take 1 hour and tell them to jot down what is what is my inheritance in this country? What is my heritage going forth in this country? My God, if we can't get our people to come up with that and to say, well, I want my country preserved. I want my ocean preserved. I want the fisheries that we could always depend on. I want to feel comfortable. I want to have always enough food to eat. I want to have a house that I could go into and I have electricity, running, clean water, etc. You know something? We are so dependent upon people rushing in here to help us simply because we have not prepared our population for the future. If it weren't for NGOs during Dorian, after Dorian, and then until now, we would have no fresh water. We wouldn't have enough food to feed our people. That is reprehensible. It means that we are not preparing for the future and for the preservation of our resources and for our people. And for people to come in here, and the only thing that we have that we could rely upon in terms of the millions that we could make from tourism, and also the only thing that we will be left with at the end of the century to feed our people is the ocean. And let some idiots come in here, pirates. These are modern day pirates. And I'm sure that the people who welcome them in have had the heritage of piratism or whatever it is embedded in their souls. Because, you know, we have been accustomed to that. Shipwrecking, gun running, people running, drug running, every type of running. Even tourism is a parasitic economy. It does not come from the natural creativity and the blessedness of what God has put into our souls. And so I wanted to put that in there because the fact is that we got to conscientize our leaders. Bring them down to the bloody sun, bury their heads in the sand and say, you smell that? That's the ducks in the belly and the bosom of Mother Earth, from which you have come. Respect it. Go out in the ocean. and let them go down with me to 90 feet and let them feel the beauty of diving with tank and sitting in the midst of hundreds of beautiful sharks and barracudas and turtles and all of that stuff. Even at my age, I can do that and I enjoy it. Let's get our people out there and let's learn, teach them, learn them. They should say, learn them how to do. Let's teach them how to swim, how to dive, how to fish, how to build boats. Those are the things, Michelle, that are going to bring our people to a conscientious view and vision of this magnificent body of land. You know, every day I walk on the belly and the bosom of Mother Earth, and I could feel her energy permeating every cell in my body. And that's because I have come from her, and I'm going back to her. What they're digging up in the ocean is our ancestors and all of these things from the what do you call those big animals, dinosaur age, and our ancestors to bring it up. And when every country now, you know something, let me put this in before I forget it. And again, I forgive myself for ever forgetting. But we have been in contact with Southern Caribbean islands, and they're begging us, they're pleading with, please do not let those people drill. What they have to Trinidad and to those islands is absolutely despicable. They cannot go out like we can in 10 feet of water and find fish. They cannot go out and find a conch. They cannot go out and find a lobster. That's what has happened to those countries. They said the mere fact when that drill hits the rock of that bottom of Mother Earth and that reverberation goes out, it kills billions of microscopic animals immediately, which forms the cycle of food for all of the animals in the ocean. Why are we letting people do that? Why are we letting Potter come here and they demean us? They tell you, well, who are we? You know, like, you know, we set them in houses and we looking down in the ocean and we don't care about the future.
Did y'all see the video of Potter saying that they're going to be selling oil straight off the back of the boat? Did you guys see that video?
This is where it begins to become hilarious, because you know why? They don't have the money, the resources to build the proper infrastructure for pumping oil.
That's right, exactly.
Michelle, let me say this to you. Let me paraphrase this. It says that if you're not prepared to fight for the future, you don't deserve it. If you're not prepared to fight for the Bahamas, we don't deserve it.
Amen.
Repeat that, please. If you're not prepared to fight for the future, you don't deserve it. If you're not prepared to fight for the Bahamas, we don't deserve it.
Amen.
What happens is, here's a little note. Do you realize that the same time that we start drilling in the Bahamas, they begin to feel seismic activities in the state of Florida that no one could explain?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In fact, my family living over there had the same feelings.
Yes, because what happens is, what they don't tell us is that we share a plate with Florida. We share a plate, and we don't know the repercussions that we will have. But I just want you to understand, Michelle and Joe, do you know that 80% of the multi-trillion dollars that's in the Bahamas is environmentally based? Those individuals, do you know that if we were to kill this third largest nursery in the world, there will be no hope for those Caribbean countries to ever recover from the damage they have began to do in 100 years or whatever, because their nursery, their areas that they'd kill, depends on our nursery now that they've put protection in to migrate back to them and rebuild their ecosystem. Amen. They are depending on our ecosystem to revitalize the world, the third largest nursery in the world. And so when you begin to look at Joe Biden going in, he's literally committed indirectly trillions of dollars to move towards the green economy and the blue economy. But we are the fourth border. You have Mexico, Canada, and the Bahamas. It is impossible for us not to feel the impact of those trillions of dollars if we prepare ourselves. Do you know in Freeport, Grand Bahama, Freeport has more mangroves than the entire United States. Grand Bahama has more flats. State of Florida is considered the fishing capital of the world. Yet in Grand Bahama, I'm not talking about the Bahamas, in Grand Bahama alone, we have more flats in Grand Bahama than the entire United States. So how is it that the state of Florida has a multi-billion-dollar industry with a fraction of the natural resources that we have? Because we have not been allowed to exploit it. And then they ask, what is going to happen if individuals do not know the digital future and they don't know the environment, how it plays into our very survival? For the mere fact that for almost 2 decades we have not talked about global warming, and we are now going into oil, the number one and number two contributor for global warming for our existence, about to wipe us out. We've not had a conversation for the mere fact that aragonite and sand is the very basis for which we can move to build the Bahamas as a protection source, where other places around the world are building land, but we're just sitting here looking at ways of how to destroy it by embracing carbon future. Do Bahamians understand that the Bahamas generates 1,600% of the radiant heat that most other countries around the world produce, meaning that on Grand Bahama for about $60 million, we could give free electricity for life? That in New Providence for $350 million that you don't have to pay any light bill, but yet we spend $180 million a year on oil that we can move away, that these individuals, see, here's the problem. Because our leadership lack the understanding of the era that we're in and the future we're moving to, that they're now trying to hold on to what they know that they need to govern. The world has shifted. COVID has shifted the world. And we're trying to go back to what we were. We're trying to go back to tourism, when very fact that tourism is a subcategory of hospitality that is the 10th largest industry in the world. So the mere fact is that we have tourism. You remember now, the Free National Movement came in under ecotourism in East Grand Bahama, digital and industry in central, and cultural and heritage in West Grand Bahama. The ecotourism industry alone, on Grand Bahama, a survey was done about a decade ago that showed that on Grand Bahama alone, from the hospitality industry, now this is different than tourism, the hospitality industry, and we need about 20,000 rooms on this island that can create an excess of 150,000 jobs. And the very mere fact that we're not moving to having this type of conversation of how do we go into East Grand Bahama, where Norway has done billions of dollars of damages, where this becomes a prime opportunity for us to bring environmentalists in and universities in, and reclaiming what has been damaged at their expense. And at the same time, this becomes a lesson in nature on what techniques what can be used to recover this, and at the same time building an ecotourism based product. But there's a host of things that we can do that literally ties into the environmental. If anyone who's offering, whether they're an aspirant or an independent, who can explain to you the blue economy, the green economy, the orange economy, and the digital economy, and how it ties into for the economic development and revitalization of the Bahamas, I put to you that they are unqualified to sit in the House of Assembly. We are this close, teetering on the edge of financial collapse. This is no time for us to go back to what we know do not work. We need moonshot ideas. We need a national development plan that encompasses all Bahamian. But here's the problem. Fixing the Bahamas democratizes power. And by democratizing power, it means that the power will be returned to the people.
Yep, and that's exactly what they do not want.
And common wealth will belong to all the people by virtue of surrendering the entire assets, known and unknown, tangible and intangible.
Let me ask y'all something. Hold on, Sierra. Let me ask y'all something, because y'all brought in the U.S. into this conversation. I have been advised that one of the reasons why this was not acted on under the Christie administration is because the United States advised Christie and his cabinet, as we have heard In recent times, members of the U.S. Leadership say that, if something goes wrong, we gonna hold y'all responsible. And I understand, I've been advised that that is one of the reasons, if not the main reason, why the Christie administration backed off from this. So now we come to the Minnis administration. We're hearing these same kinds of warnings from the U.S. If something goes wrong here, we holding y'all accountable for this. We holding y'all responsible for this. But they have decided to proceed anyway. Now, let me ask you this. We like to pretend in this country like we are living in a vacuum all by ourselves and that we are not impacted by international relations and what happens around the world. But that is quite frankly just not true. Should we be concerned that because this administration has decided to proceed anyway, that we can expect now to get some kind of spanking from the U.S. because we did not heed the warning, as I've been advised the Christie administration did?
Let me respond to that before you comment, C. Allen. Well, two things. One, this reverberation that they felt in Florida just recently, in fact, two or 3 days ago, they had no idea any earthquake or anything of that sort. My family member there, my daughter did, they experienced it. One of the things that we must be aware of, and that is that tomorrow, when Biden is elevated to the post of president of the United States, right away he's going to sign the Paris Accord. And we go abroad. Our prime minister goes abroad, environmental people go abroad, and they tout the fact that, hey, we're the country the most impacted by climate change and sea level rise, and we need more funds from these big countries, to deal with that. And so what a contradiction that we allowing oil to be drilling in our waters. How are we going to go to another meeting like that and say, hey, we're impacted by this, and they say, you damn fools, go back to the Bahamas. You're allowing drilling there. They don't understand. And I'm sure when Biden gets in there, he's going to be very much aware of this nonsense that's being perpetrated by people from Europe and particularly from England in terms of coming here and invading our territory, treating us like we're not sovereign nations at all, demeaning environmentalists and we who have to protect this country for future generations. But let me first throw something in here. I was speaking to environmentalists who frequent the Florida Keys. And he said to me, you know something? Our conch stock are beginning, because you can't take conchs in the Florida Keys, is beginning to come back. And he said, we've done investigation and we know for sure that when the conchs lay eggs in the protected area in Exuma, the Gulf Stream brings the eggs and they hatch up along the Florida coast. Isn't that something? Look at the impact, like C. Allen Johnson was saying, that we could have over the whole Caribbean area if they devastate their environment, their marine resources, and we be left pristine, how we could impact the entire globe for the purity of our flowing Gulf Stream and waters. My. I cry shame on any politician who perpetuates this move. You will not succeed. You will go down into history as one who has denied our country its natural heritage, just like selling the birthright for a pot of porridge. It's no different from back there, back in Egypt time. Okay, C. Allen, I needed to get that in before I forgot it.
What they've been doing to us shows a hate of the future. You cannot love the Bahamas.
Wow. Say that again, C. Allen. A hate of the future? Wow, that's deep.
Yeah.
That's deep.
Because what happens is that when you look at what we are and look at where we are, when you look at the fact that we never left the Paris Accord, and the mere fact that the United States is going back in with a big bang, the only way for the United States now to become competitive, the world is now moving away from the carbon future. Net zero, they're moving to a net zero future. And so we never left. We're the third largest nursery in the world. the largest depositories of some of the most invaluable assets that is necessary around the world. We have been given guardian of 200 miles of exclusive economic zone that also extend the value of what we have. We are actually the third border to the United States. We are a stone throw away from them. So what they do affects us. What we do affects them. In fact, if we look at it, we do over $3 trillion worth of commerce in the Bahamas that directly goes to South America or into the Americas. $3 trillion. That's part of our natural resource, our sea lanes. And the mere fact is that, so when we look at what we have, I mean, we must be a nation of blind people. I want people to know it's allegory of the cave, where you are locked into a cave watching shadows on the wall, and you've been convinced that it's been real because you're chained in the cave. And even when those that leave the cave come back in to tell you the shadows are not real, you will actually fight and literally kill them, calling them mad from being outside the cave in the sun, because the shadows, as you know, is real. What we have to do is we need a new dispensation of leadership. Those that not only sees the present, but well into the future. That those that understand, I said you 80% of the 70 plus resources that I've documented so far is directly environmentally related, meaning they're part of the sea. I want to realize, you know, we have more water than we have land in the Bahamas. This is why it's important for us to move in sync with the Paris Accord, to understand the value of the carbon credits that we have, to understand the value of the nature preserve that we have, where there's billions of dollars that's available just for replanting and what do you call those, the mangroves. You know, just when you think about it, right? Let me tell you what happened in the last 10 years. Do you know it was a site in the Bahamas that was considered a World Heritage Site? I didn't say Bahamas, a World Heritage Site in Bimini. Do you know we destroyed a World Heritage Site where billions of shrimp and mangroves and everything was in fishery done so that we could build a hotel where everybody there is now unemployed? And we dredge a canal in it also. A World Heritage Site, World Heritage Site. And Joseph, I think, what's the nephew of the former president came here and he spoke about it. Kennedy.
Kennedy Jr.
Right.
Bobby
And
Kennedy
so,
Jr.
Yeah.
And I'm saying
part of the problem with that particular thing, though, is that, again, we have to go back to see what has really been happening in this country, because what you're talking about, that is privately owned property. Now, how was that allowed to become privately owned property?
No, but here's the point. Because that was a seabed. No private property. There's no such thing as private property underwater. Nowhere in the Bahamas.
But my point is that because I don't want us to get distracted and move away from the conversation we're supposed to be having today. But my point is that we have to, this whole question of what's the word I'm looking for? Questionable things happening in our country. I'll put it this way. I had a conversation this morning with someone, and we were talking about corruption. And one of the things that I said to her is, I want you to understand that there's no political party in this country, at least not the two major ones, that have a monopoly on corruption. We like to, you know, there's certain people who will make you think that the PLP wrote the book on corruption. And if you look in the dictionary under the word corruption, you'll see it 8x10 glossy PLP. But those same people turn a blind eye to the wrongs that the Free National Movement has done and is doing. If it's corruption for one, it needs to be corruption for all. It can't be where you could identify it's corruption for this party, but when your party in power and doing foolishness, you have another term for that. So we have to be real. We have to be honest with what is happening in this country. The tribalism has to stop, because it cannot be where you can only identify the wrong when somebody else is doing it. But when you're guilty of the same thing, all of a sudden it's not wrong. I said to my hairstylist today, as I was preparing to come to the show, she and I were talking about this. I said, if the PLP were guilty of some of the things that this administration has done in the last in this go round, people would be screaming from the top of the mountain at the top of their lungs, "Oh, this is corruption!" But yet you turn a blind eye when it's happening under this administration. Until we decide to call a spade and stop sugarcoating wrong, stop cloaking wrong, because whether it's my good child, my good son, who are shooting up people and robbing people, but that's your good son, or whether it's your political party that is involved in malfeasance, but you don't want to call it that, until we get to the point where we are honest with ourselves, I dare say that this Bahamas will continue. The majority of people in this country will continue to live below the poverty line, will continue to suffer, will continue to feel pain, because nobody is going to give up privilege. If I am privileged, why should I just hand over to you? Why? When I enjoying the privilege. And the problem that we have in this country, it has gone on for too long. There's a small group of people who are enjoying the privilege, the power of privilege and the privilege of power.
Michelle?
These conversations 20 years from now, same conversation.
Okay, all right. You went out there 1 second. Okay. Let me just bring in an issue here, and maybe both of you can elaborate on it. I don't know, is Sam coming in?
Yeah, she's just joined us. She's having a hard time getting in, but I've just added her to the stream. So, Sam,
okay. All right. Under the PLP government run by Sir Lyndon, he enacted the Immovable Properties Act. That was probably one of the most greatest pieces of legislation that this country could rely upon. That was rescinded by Prime Minister Hubert Ingraham when he got into power. As a result of that, all of the keys between New Providence going all the way to the Keys, stretch of Keys to Exuma, after Exuma going to Long Island, all of these are now owned by foreigners. And they establish them like little fiefdoms. They have rules unto themselves. Even Bahamians who have problems with their boats, they cannot even go ashore to get help. They are met by people with guns and ammunition. That is what has become of our country. That is one thing that needs to be reestablished. And that will secure what was said about the seabed. That should not ever be sold to anyone. It can be leased if you have some development that's going to encroach upon the coastal area going into the sea itself. And that should only be leased, never sold. We will, our future generation, you look at New Providence, for example, you go from east to west and all the way around, you could count on one hand, less, but one hand, maybe one and a half, maybe seven, the number of properties owned by original Black Bahamians or poor white Bahamians. It is all owned by Eastern Road Knights, Bay Street Boys, and all the way around. It's like a fortification around, and all of our native Bahamians are pushed into the center, into a gut of hunger and starvation. That's what has become of our country, because our leaders have not seen to it that our people get the rightful acquisition and ownership of property that they could live. You know something? I got to put this in here. Just hit my memory. I did a observation recently, and I estimated that between 85 and 90% of all young men, and I'm only talking about young men, living in New Providence now own nothing, absolutely nothing. And I like to give you an example of growing up on the island. You know, if you went down to the next settlement to ask the hand of a girl or something to marry, the first thing you had to tell the father, I own land, and I have my house built up to Bell Coast. What do we own in this country? What do people own in New Providence, for example?
Well, I dare say it's harder for you to own a piece of the rock in this country. It's
Yeah,
very, very
and then when you have developments like in Baker's Bay, where land was sold for $1 an acre to foreigners, and then they built $10 million homes on there and sold them for $20 million, $30 million. And Bahamians are squished in between, not owning anything. That's what my people, my black brothers have done to me and to my future generations. And I cry shame on that. It's reprehensible, it is demonic, and it is treacherous, and it is treasonous.
We traded one set of oppressors for another one who look like us.
Worse. Let me tell you something is worse, because at least, you know, the white oligarchy, they had a certain fear and anxiety about black people. But now when you got the black leaders, they got the black people wrapped around their finger. They know their whole psyche, their whole spiritual inclination, and how they're devastated by all this stuff about sin, and so they can always bring it. It is one enslavement. In fact, it is worse than physical enslavement, psychological enslavement. That's what my people are suffering right now.
Yeah. Gentlemen, we have to take a quick break, the final break for the show. And then when we come back, we're going to take a look at one or two of the Facebook messages. Again, our text line is 828-2543, 828-2543. And our call line is 828-3543, 828-3543. We'd love to hear from you. This is GPS, your global paradigm shift. Stay with us. We'll be back after the
At Brotherhood Security, your safety is our concern. Providing 24-hour surveillance, mobile patrol, event security, and more, Brotherhood Security gives you 5-star service for half the price. Feel free to WhatsApp or call us at 813-6730 or 431-9064. Brotherhood Security, giving you the best for less. Want to look your best and feel even better? Visit J.D. Edwards Salon and Spa for the ultimate beauty, body, and anti-aging treatments, offering custom colors, haircuts, vegan anti-freeze treatments, silk blowouts, natural and acrylic nails, unisex pedicures, facials and massages, all waxing services, and microcurrent therapies for anti-aging and body sculpting. J.D. Edwards Salon and Spa, Palmdale Shopping Plaza, Madeira Street, telephone 326-7863.
The thoughts, views, and comments expressed.
And welcome back to GPS Global Paradigm Shift. I'm your host, Michelle Malcolm, and my guests today are C. Alan Johnson and Joe Darbo. We're talking oil. Oil and water don't mix, but oil money sure do. And I promised that on this side of the break, we're going to read one or two of the messages that have been sent on Facebook. Margot Blackwell sending a message on Facebook saying, have we valued our carbon sequestering role in the planet, and in particular, the west side of Andros? Who wants to tackle that?
I will. Let me say this. The Bahamas sequesters billions of tons of carbon per year by the virtue of the sun, the ocean, and the winds. We have yet did not even tap one time. We could go to the Nature Conservatory site, the BNT site, and other sites, and especially the global people, they will tell you the value of the carbon sequestration ability of the Bahamas. We have not tapped into it. In fact, we have only did a courtesy look at it to make the determination of $10 to $12 billion. A careful examination will probably put us closer to $20 billion in our capabilities. Not only that, but also when we begin to add to our position in the role that we would play for America and others, we become the carbon sequestration location for America as it moves towards achieving its our goal of joining the Paris deal. We just have to have a conversation of where we want to go and where we want to be. But we must understand that power concedes nothing without a demand. And power, however, does not concede to the demand of an emasculated constituent. We cannot demand for anything that's ours while on our knees. So it's time for Bahamians to begin to stand up and demand more from our individual leaders. See, the problem is they've done an excellent job at having us scream at the CAN, scream at the PLP, scream at the FNM, while allowing the individuals who make decisions on our behalf. We only need to take control of 20 of our constituencies and to make sure that those 20 leaders do what we expect them to do, and we will get what we want. Joe spoke about the land. When you begin to look at, when you say, let's surrender the rest of the land in the Bahamas, but when you look at alone, when he talked about Albany, the money they raised of building a house, understand this. When I build a house for $150,000, the mere fact that it cost me $150,000 to build doesn't negate the value that it actually has a retail value of maybe $225,000 to $250,000. And so when we begin to look at what's been taken from us, a land trust would allow us to reacquire assets that we think is out of the reach of the ordinary Bahamians. So in essence, the Bahamas government, the Sovereign Wealth Fund, will begin to have first right of refusal for all land that is sold in the Bahamas. This is not nationalizing anything. If you want to move towards to sell your land, the Sovereign Wealth Fund will buy it back on behalf of Bahamians. When we look at Singapore, 85, we left to admire Singapore, but 80 to 85% of all the land in Singapore is owned as a collective for the people. It doesn't stop you from developing. If you want to build a hotel, we become partners with you in the hotel. In 99 years, you should have recovered whatever monies you put in that hotel or whatever period that we negotiate for. But when you look at Bahama, we've given $1 billion worth of land, and we got nothing but JOBS, just over broke suckers in the just over broke system. So what we have to do is we have to change our mindset and understand there's new techniques of us reclaiming the Bahamas from what we've allowed to happen to us, but we cannot put the same type of leaders into the country that want to continue the same regime. And so we have the resources to buy back what has been taken from us. We're not talking, you'll hear the people come all the time, oh, you can't nationalize, whatever. Do you know the government has one thing? The government has no money. The government get 100% of its revenue from taxes, from taxing us in this country. So guess what? Tomorrow, right, that Simon brags about the oil having no tax. We could just say that we want 105% tax on any oil leaving the Bahamas that coming out of the ground. And he's free to take it up. Take up $1 worth of oil, give us $1.05 in taxes. See, so there's no such thing, and this is why they try to play on you to use word like nationalization. You could imagine that he's out there drilling right now, claiming that he can't stop. That means it's something catastrophic was to happen. He's telling us we're screwed, that he can't stop. How do you start drilling with the inability to stop at any moment?
Yeah,
they're playing us. They are playing us for fools. And I'm simply saying leadership is not standing up for us because we have conditioned them to oppress us. This is the time now that the Bahamas is flat on its back economically. This is the time for Bahamians to come together to recognize that you're sitting in a $1 trillion environment. We are talking about billions of tons of aragonite. We're talking about in February of 2012, the Minister of the Environment made an announcement that the Bahamas produces 5 billion tons of sand. This is not aragonite that can be harvested environmentally without impact. 5 billion tons of sand. This is, I didn't talk about the aragonite. We are now realizing that the Bahamas actuary, where we grow fisheries, is in excess of the $1 trillion value because of its impact globally. We are talking about the carbon credits. We're talking about the largest area of mangroves in this hemisphere. We're talking about the largest fishing flats in this hemisphere. We have so much. This is what I'm saying to you. 80% of the resources in the Bahamas is environmentally based. It's important for us to begin to have a true conversation on a sovereign wealth fund and its proper constitution that rips the power of corruption, the things that cause them to be corrupted, away from our leadership so that we can send people to Parliament for two purposes, just what it says, for laws and policies for good governance and development of the people. Because
all right,
these
I want to go to a couple of the messages because we're low on time. I want to go to a couple of the Facebook messages. This one by Trevor Morley says both the PLP and FNM are responsible for the destruction of the beautiful country, and both parties need to be kept out of the House of Assembly come 2022 elections and banned from the House forever. Boy, Trevor, there's some fighting words for some people. You better watch your back. Another one, Charles Clark says, C. Allen is on point. Never give up the land. God only making more land in Hawaii. Nowhere else. Dorinda Forbes, tax the oil, she asks, while will be on the back of the boat to give, I guess she means who will be on the back of the boat to give an account on the amount of oil leaving the country? Good question, Dorinda Forbes. And Charles Clark says, we have been sold and even bought the idea that the Bahamas is without value. And there is the problem. There lies the problem. Because they've put this rhetoric out there that all these things really don't have the value that they say they have. But here's the problem that I have. They know better. It's not like they just don't know and they speak in utter ignorance. I think that it is the highest degree of dishonesty when you know the truth, but you choose to try to suppress that truth for your benefit. And I dare say, in my humble opinion, that that is what we are suffering from in this country. I do not for 1 second believe that they do not know better. They know better. But they also know that they could swing you. And so as opposed to putting the truth out there, you know, this is why the Freedom of Information Act will never come. I would be shocked if it does. Because they don't want you to know the truth. Why are they holding this information so close to their chest? Because they know that if you get the knowledge, if you really know what's going on in this country, then you will demand so much more from them. So as long as they can keep you in the dark, keep the society dumbed down, then the few will continue to benefit from the national resources. And they believe all they should be able to do is show you a couple of jobs. What you making noise about? We giving these people jobs. Meanwhile, they and their offspring for generations are living like kings and queens while you struggling. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I just wanted, I don't know how much time we have left, but I'm glad.
We have 4 minutes left, so we got to wrap it up. So go ahead.
Couple points, and that is that, you know, Bahamians, a lot of Bahamians have been duped about this wealth fund. And they figured that we're going to get $1 billion in there as soon as BPPC strikes the oil in the Bahamas. That is a bunch of foolishness. Even Carter came out the other day and said,
we're having some problems with your audio, Joe.
Okay, all right.
We can hear you now. We can hear you
now. There will be 6 years before we even see a dime, if we see anything, because they got to pay up all these other people. But the fact is that we have so much to offer the world. You know, 60%. Like I'm breathing in pure air right now. Comes from our ocean. And can you imagine if that is polluted? What's going to happen to Florida? What's going to happen to the Bahamas? We'll be breathing in oil. We'll be breathing in oil. When we go down into the Equinor area now, when we come out there, it takes us about 2 hours actually to kind of get all of that stuff out of our system, our lungs, from breathing in oil that's been there since Dorian on the ground. So come, my people. You know, get on there, sign the petition. But the fact, this is what I was going to say. Now I remember. The fact is that because there's no Freedom of Information Act, that's why we have to go to GRW, Judicial Review. And we have done a whole session on that, telling the people why we have to do that, because we know nothing about the agreement that made between this BPPP company and the government. from very beginning. So we're going to find that out, and that's when we're going to have the ammunition to stop those bloody bastards who come into our country and treat us because they call us a bunch of rocks, and when they get all the oil and gold, they're going to leave us still a bunch of rocks. That's what they say about us.
See, Alan, 1 minute. Now, see, Alan, I know you're out of time. 1 minute to wrap it up.
Beginning today, I need everyone to call their individual MP, FNM, PLP, and every aspirant, and demand that they release this agreement, put it in the public domain. If your aspirant do not get up today and begin to demand that this agreement be released, both FNM and PLPs, then you know where their loyalty belongs. This agreement is for your assets. Would be awesome as do. If you're listening, I encourage you. The 80% of the resources were trillions of dollars. That's millions of dollars for each individual Bahamians, that you should ask your children to become environmental ambassadors. Become educated. I mean, Joe Darwin and others have been doing it. This must now go at hyper speed for indoctrination of learning of what the value is, and understand that it's 80% of the environment, and the world is moving towards the blue and green economy. And if they want to be the next millionaires and billionaires in the world, it starts with the assets in their hands, in their yard now. But if you do not fight for it, you do not deserve it.
Your minute is up. Somebody is asking, where do they sign the petition? Joe, can you give them some information on that, please?
Yeah, if they go online and look up the Facebook, our islands, our future petition there.
Sorry about that.
We have a lot of English people signing it, wanting oil.
Repeat it again for me, please, because I accidentally removed it.
That's our islands, our future. Yes, that would bring up the site to go on and sign the petition.
All right, gentlemen, thank you. Time is gone. Thank you so much for being a part of this discussion today. Lord, we got plenty of work to do. Pray out, strengthen the Lord. Like people say, but we got to do more than pray, people. We have to really demand better. And until we get to that point where we demand better, we will continue, I dare say, to go through what we're going through right now. We tried to get Sam on, but we couldn't get her. But I'm going to end this broadcast with a text that she sent me on my personal phone. It says, understand, until the government is transparent in all the dealings, this will continue. That's going to do it for today's show. Thanks to all of our sponsors who made it possible, and a big thank you to Glory 93.9 FM for having GPS on the air. Tomorrow is Wellness Wednesday, so I want you to tune in for some information on how you can really move closer to optimal health, move beyond just a resolution into a reality. That's tomorrow. Stay with us. Come back tomorrow. I'm Michelle Malcolm. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a good afternoon, everyone.